You're watching Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. My name is T.S. Sudhir. We are going to be now looking at Act 1, Scene 2 of The Tempest. It's a very long scene in sharp contrast to what happened in Act 1, Scene 1, where the Tempest put the ship into a whole lot of trouble. We are going to be doing Act 1, Scene 2 in 6 separate videos, primarily because I don't want each video lesson to be very long, because that tends to overawe the students quite a bit, and also it helps me in editing shorter videos. The processing and publishing process is much simpler in that sense. This particular scene, why is it in sharp contrast to the scene 1, is because in scene 1 we saw a whole lot of characters on board the ship, everyone trying to talk at almost the same time, or at least one character talking to different people at the same time, right? Here you will see at any given time on stage you will have only 2 characters or at best 3 characters in the later part of the scene. This is also because Shakespeare, in terms of the visual imagery on the stage, obviously wanted to present the contrast between the confusion on board the ship to the quietness, in a sense, of the island. An island is obviously not a busy place, right? So when you kind of move in terms of visuals and in terms of imagine the audience, suddenly a whole lot of people to the absolute quiet. So the contrast will be much more easily established in terms of visual imagery, and that's what Shakespeare as a playwright, to my mind, would have wanted to convey. I don't know how many of you have actually seen plays on stage. It's a great experience, it's a great spectacle to watch, and it's also interesting to watch people perform live. My best friend used to study at the National School of Drama, so through him I got the opportunity to watch a whole lot of great actors perform live on stage, including many Shakespearean plays, their adaptation in Hindi. So it's interesting to see how Shakespearean plays like Hamlet, Macbeth, etc. would be adapted in an Indian, in a Hindi kind of a context. Okay, let's not digress. So here we actually, if we have to divide Act 1, Scene 2, the first half, or not the first half, but the first bit is between Prospero and Miranda, and this part is very significant. We'll be doing this in 2 videos, mainly because this is the flashback. In this, Prospero will actually tell his daughter how and why and when the 2 of them actually landed on this island away from the dukedom of Milan, right? Milan as in Italy. So the dialogue between Prospero and Miranda is about the flashback, and that's very important. Then you have the airy spirit called Ariel, his dialogue with Prospero. Then you have Prospero and Caliban. I'll tell you about the character of Caliban when we come to that part. That's the third part. And then the last part is about a bit of Ariel, Ferdinand, who falls in love with Miranda, and Prospero and Miranda, their kind of dialogues together, separately, everything. That's the last part of the Act 1, Scene 1. So we'll be doing it, as I said, in 6 parts. So this is part 1. Miranda starts off by saying to her father, Prospero, if by your art, my dearest father, you have put the wild waters in this roar, allay them. The sky, it seems, would pour down stinking pitch, but that the sea, mounting to the welkin's cheek, dashes the fire out. Oh, I have suffered with those that I saw suffer, a brave vessel who had no doubt some noble creature in her, dashed all to pieces. Oh, the cry did knock against my very heart. Poor souls, they perished. Had I been any god of power, I would have sunk the sea within the earth, or ere it should the good ship so have swallowed, and the frothing souls within her. So this is the long dialogue of Miranda in this particular scene. That's how the Act 1, Scene 2 starts, right? 1 second. So basically, one thing that it reinforces about Miranda right at the beginning is that she's a good-hearted person, because she's obviously very moved as a result of what she sees there, that so many people have been affected as a result of the tempest, as a result of the storm, and she fears that many of them have actually been drowned. Okay, so it shows the good natured self of Miranda. If by your art, art essentially means magic, because Prospero, we will discover, is essentially well versed with the art of magic. If by your magic, my dearest father, you have put the wild waters in this roar, stop them. Allay them as in stop them, right? The sky, it seems, would pour down stinking pitch. So Miranda, it shows, is aware of Prospero's magical powers, and she tells him that if you are responsible for the storm, for the tempest, please bring it under control. It seems as if some kind of a black rain of black tar is actually falling, would fall from the sea. The sky, it seems, would pour down stinking pitch, black tar, essentially black rain. Welkin is a reference to the sky. Okay, Welkin's cheek. Okay, it means the face of heaven, Welkin's cheek. And she basically wants to convey that her heart has suffered a lot of trauma, a lot of grief as a result of seeing all those poor, noble people suffering on board that ship. She believes that the ship has been wrecked. But of course, I mean, as we will know, the reality is that Prospero is the one who had told Ariel to kind of create that storm, but he had also given instructions that no person on that ship and also the ship itself should come to any kind of harm. It should not be destroyed in any kind of manner. So what it shows is that Miranda has seen an illusion. She believes that everyone has been drowned in that shipwreck and the ship itself has been completely damaged. So she says that the cries of the suffering people, and it seems to us that it has tormented Miranda. So as I said, it gives you a glimpse into the gentle-hearted nature of Miranda. Important. Now, then she says that if I had any kind of divine power, the power of God, I would have actually made the sea sink to the bottom so that the ship does not sink. I would have made the sea go right to the bottom so that the ship did not sink, and none of those souls would have suffered. You know, the floating souls essentially is a reference to creatures who are almost like freight, like cargo on that vessel, that is on that ship. Prospero says, be collected, as in be assured, be calm. No more amazement. Tell your piteous heart there is no harm done. So tell your heart, tell your good heart that there is absolutely no harm done, because he is aware of what exactly happened on board that particular ship. Oh, woe the day. So she says, she continues to be sad. She continues to be sad, she continues to be worried, she continues to lament, and woe the day means she is almost like cursing the day, you know, the day that she saw that happening. Prospero says, no harm has been done. I have done nothing but in care of thee, my dear one, thee, my daughter, who art ignorant of what thou art, not knowing of whence I am, nor that I am more better than Prospero, master of a full poor cell, and thy no greater father. Prospero says that I have done everything for you, right? I have done everything for you and only in order to protect you, in order to safeguard your interests, my daughter's interests, right? And also you do not know where I come from where I come, and now I am the owner of this little cell, a cave of sorts on that particular island, this poor kind of a dwelling. So, this proud father, what brought that proud father to this state is something that you are completely unaware of. More to know did never meddle with my thoughts. So she says it never entered my mind, it never occurred to me that there is more to know as to how you and I actually landed up here on this island. Prospero says, it's time I should inform thee further, lend thy hand and pluck my magic garment from me. So he says, it's time you know about it, it's time that I inform you, I keep you informed, I let you know about the story of how we actually landed on this particular island. And then he says, remove my garment, so the magic garment, and then he says, wipe thou thine eyes, have comfort, the direful spectacle of the wreck, which does the very virtue of compassion in thee. I have with such provision in mine art, so safely ordered that there is no soul, no, not so much perdition as a hair, beaten to any creature in the vessel, which thou heardest cry, which thou sawest sink. Sit down, for thou must now know further. Okay. I actually like the Tempest. It's actually pretty well constructed in that sense. I don't know how many of you agree. Okay, perdition essentially is referring to loss. Beated, another word which you should know the meaning, it's essentially referring to happened. Okay, happened to any creature in the vessel. Now, he says that no one on that ship has been harmed, not even a hair of any person on that ship has been harmed. So, he says that what you saw, which actually touched you very deeply, touched your very compassionate, your very kind hearted self, it actually touched. He says that I have ordered, he doesn't say who did he order, but he says I have ordered, he actually had ordered Ariel, that no soul will suffer as a result of the shipwreck, right? So sit down because you need to now know more. You have often begun to tell me what I am, but stopped and left me to a bootless inquisition, concluding stay not yet. Bootless is a word which Shakespeare had used even in Merchant of Venice, if you would recall. I think it was in Act 3 if I am not mistaken. You have often started to tell me, she says that you have often started to tell me who I am, but always stopped and and left me kind of asking some useless questions, and the suspense in that sense has not yet been broken for so many years. Prospero, the hour has now come. The very minute bids thee ope thine ear, obey and be attentive. Canst thou remember a time before we came unto this cell? I do not think thou canst, for then thou wast not out 3 years old. So now we are getting a sense of what it was. So he says the first bit of information that Prospero is giving is that when the father and daughter landed on this island, the daughter Miranda wasn't even 3 years old, right? We'll get an idea about her age a little later in this scene. So he says the time has now come for the things to be revealed to you, for the entire story of how you landed on this island with me. The time has come for that story to be revealed to you. And he says, can you remember a time before we came to this dwelling, to this place, to this island? And I don't think you can, because then you were not even 3 years old, right? Miranda says, certainly sir, I can. And that surprises Prospero. That surprises Prospero. Miranda's answer that yes, I can actually surprises Prospero. He says, how? By what? By any other house or person? I mean, do you remember any house or any person in that house? Any image by which you can actually remember how it was before we came onto this island? Has anything kind of stayed in your memory, remembrance? It's far off and rather like a dream than an assurance that my remembrance warrants, had I not 4 or 5 women once that tended me. So there is some bit of the memory as a very, very small child before she turned 3 that has stayed on in Miranda's mind. It's a very vague kind of memory as things are, of a time, if all of you are 16, 17-year-olds, if I ask you to recollect what happened when you were 3, it would be a very kind of a vague kind of a memory, right? The same thing is the case now with Miranda. She says it's far off, it's very vague and a very faded kind of a memory. It's not a definite memory. It's not an assurance. It's not a definite memory. It's more like a dream. And dreams tend to be a little vague and foggy in nature, right? And then she asked, didn't I have 4 or 5 women who actually tended to me before we came here? Prospero says, thou hadst and more, Miranda, but how is it that this lives in thy mind? What seest thou else in the dark, backward and abysm of life? If thou remembered aught here before thou camest here, how thou camest here thou mayest. So he says that if you remember things before you came here, you might as well remember how did you land on this island, right? So he says that how is it that this memory has stayed on in your mind, right? And he asks, what else do you see in the darkness of that kind of memory pit? If there is anything else that you actually recall, even if it is a vague kind of a memory. But that I do not. 12 year since Miranda, 12 years since the father was the Duke of Milan and a Prince of Power. So he says it's been 12 years since then. So now we get an idea that she's actually just about 15 years old. 3 years before they landed here and 12 years on the island, right? And he says your father was the Duke of Milan and a very powerful prince. And then she gets into a doubt. Are you not my father? He's going on talking himself, Prospero. He kind of ignores the question. He said, your mother was a piece of virtue. And she said, thou wast my daughter, and thy father was Duke of Milan, and thou his only heir, and princess, no worse issued. So you are a princess, nothing less than that. Oh, the heavens, what foul play had we that we came from thence, or blessed was it we did. So she says, she immediately kind of is able to gauge the part that obviously it must be because of some kind of foul play, some kind of evil, that they must have landed from a palace, right? If she was indeed a princess, from a palace to this kind of a remote island, right? So what evil, what foul play happened as a result of which we came from there? Or was it some kind of a blessing that we actually came here? So she wants to know the details of why and how they landed up there. Prospero says both foul play as well as a blessing, my girl. By foul play, as you say, we heaved thence, that there was a plot as a result of which we had to move from the palace to this remote island. But at the same time, but blessedly help either, but it is also a blessed blessing and a help. It was our good fortune that we landed here and did not die on the way, right? So he's saying that it is both a blessing as well as foul play. These lines are important because anytime such lines come, you would be expected to be able to put it in context, tell who is saying this, to whom, in what context, what is the conversation all about, what happens thereafter, and put it in the entire context of the play, right? Miranda says, my heart bleeds. So she's obviously very moved as a result of whatever her father is telling her. To think of the teen that I have turned you into, which is from my remembrance, please you further. So she says, oh, she's very moved. Again, a pointer to the kind of frail heart that she seems to possess. She says that I think of the kind of agony and the pain and the harm that I have brought you to, and that is from my memory. Please go on, because she now obviously wants to know the rest of the story. She is feeling very aggrieved. Prospero says, my brother and thy uncle called Antonio, that is my brother who is also your uncle called Antonio, I pray thee mark me that a brother should be so perfidious. He whom next thyself of all the world I loved, and to put the manage of my state, as at that time through all the signories it was the first, and Prospero the prime duke, being so reputed in dignity and for the liberal arts without a parallel, those being all my study, the government I cast upon my brother, and to my state grew stranger, being transported and wrapped in secret studies. Thy false uncle, dost thou attend me? This is an important dialogue again. So he is now revealing that it was your brother and my brother and your uncle called Antonio, and he proved to be a traitor. He proved to be a traitor and broke the trust that I had reposed in him. I loved him so much that I actually handed over the powers of my dukedom of Milan, of running the state of affairs of Milan, to my brother Antonio, okay, and let him manage my city, since at that time Milan was the prime city at that point in time. I manage of my state, Prospero the prime duke, right? And he says Prospero, that is he himself, was the best among the dukes, and he was considered very good as far as the liberal arts are concerned, and of course in the art of magic. So in that sense, he talks of himself, he reveals that he was known for his intellectual pursuits, being an intellectual kind of a person. And he says, the government I cast upon my brother, and to my state grew stranger. I gave all the powers of running the state, the face of the state, to Antonio, and I myself grew stranger to my city, that is the city of Milan. I handed him over all the powers to run the dukedom of Milan. right? And I was busy in my secret studies, that is becoming better in the craft of magic, right? But your false uncle, please use this phrase whenever you're talking about Antonio, who will come in a more prominent role later in the play. Please do use these kind of phrases which have been used, as I keep saying, even in the context of a movie, that please quote as much as possible from Shakespearean text. One word, two word phrases, they kind of show a familiarity with the text, and that helps you get better marks. And then he's kind of curious. Are you listening to me? Are you being attentive? Sir, most heedfully. Yes, I am. She says, yes, I am. Being once perfected how to grant suits, how to deny them, how to advance and how to trash for overtopping, new created the creatures that were mine, I say, or change them. You can see there is a force with which Prospero seems to be now speaking, and that shows also in the kind of language. Or else new formed them, having both the key of officer and office, set all hearts in the state to what tune pleased his ear, that now he was the ivy which had hit my princely trunk and sucked my verdure out on it. Thou attendest not. Again he's kind of a little worried that she is not listening carefully, because he wants her to know the story. He wants her to know the backstory now that he thinks she's mature enough to understand it, emotionally mature, and also because of the fact that he knows that all those passengers on that ship are all going to arrive on the island. So he wants her to be aware of what had happened before to them. So now he says again about Antonio, that once Antonio had learned how to kind of grant requests, how to deny them, who to promote, who to advance, and how to trash for overtopping, that is, who to demote for overstepping, he recreated the creatures that were mine, right? He kind of changed everything, because he had kind of ignored his kingdom, his dukedom. He was too engrossed in his magical studies, and Antonio, because of his ambition, he indulged in treachery. He kind of took advantage of the situation. He took advantage of the trust that Prospero had reposed in his brother. Okay, so on one hand you have the ambition of Antonio, on the other hand you have the trust of Prospero, right? And Antonio leads to betrayal of Prospero's trust, and Prospero obviously treated him almost like he was his child. I mean, showed him the love of a parent, right? So basically he says that the power that Prospero had given to him, he started kind of misusing those powers that he had given to him. You know, he controlled all that which actually belonged to Prospero, the power of the office, and he changed all the people in the city to kind of fit into what he would actually like to hear, right? And he was like the ivy. Now ivy is also known as the poisonous ivy in many cases. Now ivy is basically like a creeper which kind of creeps up the trunk of a tree, right? Now what happens is that the ivy generally does not suffocate or strangle the trunk of the tree, but what it does is that over a period of time it kind of covers the leafy branches of the tree, right? As a result of which that limits the tree's ability to indulge in photosynthesis. So over a period of time, if the tree is not a very strong tree, it can even lead to the death of the tree, right? So what he is saying is that Antonio is like the ivy and the trunk of the tree is Prospero. So he has kind of been around Prospero, but he would eventually end up hurting and damaging Prospero, right? I hope you understand this comparison that has been made. So Prospero essentially, in letter he was very powerful because he was the Duke of Milan, but he was weak because he had kind of handed over the powers of running the city, the Dukedom of Milan, to his brother Antonio. So in that sense, he was not also performing the duties that were expected of a duke, because he was more interested in his literary pursuits, right? And his powers were usurped by Antonio. Now basically what he is trying to say is that Antonio, he kind of took over all the powers that Prospero had. He sucked my verdure. Verdure means sap, the sap of the tree. And again he says, thou art listening, you are not, thou attendest not, you are not listening. So she says, yes, oh good, sir, I do. So he says, please listen to me. So there is more coming, and he will talk about how Antonio plotted to overthrow and banish Prospero from the dukedom of Milan, which we will do in the second video of Act 1 Scene 2. So please stay tuned. This is an important scene with a lot of important dialogues, and since he is relating the backstory, that makes this part of Act 1 Scene 2 all the more important. So thank you very much for watching. Do stay tuned. We are going to have fun explaining, understanding, appreciating The Tempest. Thank you very much for watching.